Thanks very much, Cathaoirleach. And notwithstanding the genuine answer that the leader gave yesterday in relation to obscene bankers' pensions in the order of 500 and 650,000, just have to remind him that, and the government, that this issue is not going to go away. While his answer was accurate to the point that he answered the question that was put, perhaps, that you cannot single out any particular small section of society, we're not saying that. We're saying it should apply to everyone. What would be wrong with a cap on publicly provided pensions, say of 65,000, the same salary as the senator is paid? Would that be a poor cap? Would that be unfair? And if the cap fits, let us wear it. This country cannot afford the excessive and inordinate pensions that are being paid out of the public purse. And the fact of the matter is the public will not stand for it, and they won't stand for this government unless it deals with it. In that regard, like many members here, I'm sure, I was brought up to believe in the notion that if you minded the pennies, the pounds would mind themselves. And in that regard, I note that on November the 23rd, the Minister for State of the Department of Finance has decided as a cost-saving measure to close the Government Publications Office on Molesworth Street for the saving of €300,000, which I suppose is part of the rationalisation and savings that have to take place. And in that regard, I'm asking that perhaps the Minister for Public Expenditure, Brendan Howlin, might come into the House prior to the budget, so that perhaps we could have an input and suggest where savings could be made, that we could make a valid contribution. For instance, there's one I'd like to put forward here, Cathaoirleach, before I finish, is that I'm calling on all members of the House and of the Dáil to desist this year from what I think is the thoughtless and vulgar practice of posting out 250,000 Christmas cards at taxpayers' expense. What's the point or purpose in that? I think it's a thoughtless matter to send someone a Christmas card that they have paid for. I think it's actually thoughtless in the extreme to do so in the present climate. And in fact, if people want to recognise the goodwill of the season and to mark the occasion, I strongly suggest that perhaps members could purchase charity cards this year from the Jack and Jill Foundation or the Cancer Society or for the hospice movement instead. Because I think it's wrong in the present climate to squander and waste taxpayers' money on posting Christmas cards out that the taxpayer has already paid for. It's absurd. Thanks, Cathaoirleach.
Senator Whelan.
Scrooge is alive and well, certainly. It's a wonder you don't abolish Christmas yet, the way you're going on, you know. I mean, it's a matter for each individual to decide whether they want to send Christmas cards or not, or whether they want to utilise the facilities they have at their disposal.
Come on, Terry, give us all a good name with that.
It's a matter for individual. I certainly won't be intimidated by your comments, and it was Senator, you know.
The raise, Senator, the order of business.
At what stage did I try to intimidate anyone?
Senator, that's not a point of order, and I think, Senator, you were inviting adverse comment to you.
To clarify the situation, it was trying to give some sort of dictate to members of this House or the other House whether they would send out Christmas cards or not. It's a form of intimidation.
And your time is now nearly up.
Maybe I'm sensitive and regardless so.
Have you mattered?
Of course I have. I'd like to support the facts raised by Senator Darragh O'Brien, indeed Fenerbahce, indeed passionate comments by Senator David Norris in relation to the referendum on Saturday. I think the fact that it was an all-party committee that brought about this proposal in the first instance by a previous government, agreed by all the parties, signed up, and indeed under the chairmanship of Mary O'Rourke, who carried out an excellent job as far as that report was concerned. The last government had a wording. This government put forward the wording, and I commend them on bringing this referendum to the people in austere times. It's about 40 years too late, actually. In fact, there's 40 to 50 years of young children being deprived of having parents, responsible parents, and being adopted if that arose at that time. And the safeguards are there, and I wish to indeed commend all those who are supporting this referendum. And I say that it was a bizarre comments last Monday on Frontline programme. The statements that were made were absolutely outrageous, and I'd like to concur with Senator David Norris in this case. I do kind of resent this Roscommon case because it does infer something about Roscommon, that this particular case was ignored. Well, it did, but it happened in every county in Ireland. In every county in Ireland, similar cases have taken place.
Including the Kilkennians, but that's where they were known.
I prefer if there was no comment from the other side.
Yeah, and in that regard, It was the very elements of people who were campaigning for a no vote on Saturday that were responsible to go to the High Court to prevent the social workers carrying out their duties. And that is the fact in this particular case. And I also resent the type of newspapers that are being circulated with the most outrageous allegations and suggestions in this particular regard. It is a good for children and it's good for Ireland, and I certainly will do my utmost to see it goes through on next Saturday. And I think what Senator Batcham said was that they could be complacent.
Thank you.